Good evening and welcome back into Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Lord. It's felt like we've said this at least at 7 different points of the season, but how could it possibly get worse? And then somehow it gets worse. But it's not just the record. We get another pitcher going on the IL as Grant Holmes is on the 60-day IL, which means all 5 members of the opening day rotation are now on the 60-day IL. And it looks like we don't know yet, but it looks like Grant Holmes will miss he's obviously going to miss the rest of this season, but I would assume it's Tommy John. He's going to miss the rest of next season as well, which is a huge blow, not only for this year. We talked about everything being about 2026 and beyond. Well, what's the one thing that we can't afford is injuries. We specifically talked about Grant Holmes and how important he was to kind of being that hybrid. He can give you high leverage innings out of the bullpen next year, or he could be a member of the starting rotation. And that was right. It was very, very valuable. So potentially losing him for all of next year. Hopefully that's not the case, but we know how these things go.
The writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, elbow soreness or elbow tightness, whatever it was, the designation, and then immediately moved to the 60-day IL, generally speaking. Where there's smoke, there's fire with these sorts of things. And if you're a Braves fan, we haven't had best case scenario with any injury. Like, generally speaking, it's worst case scenario. Like, there is no reason to be optimistic that it isn't Tommy John, because every single time somebody, is injured, it's like, oh yeah. I mean, it couldn't have been worse. And it is the only thing that we're really looking forward to. I mean, you do want to see some emergences, and we have seen Mike Harris kind of, showcasing a new approach at the plate, and it's resulted in an uptick in offensive numbers. But it's also just, we need guys to be healthy. And to be quite honest, I don't want to say it out loud, but like, there's one guy in right field who should probably just be bubble wrapped and put on the shelf until 2026.
Yeah. I mean, if another season-ending injury were to happen to Acuna or any of the Braves' biggest players, because I know Austin Riley's not having the best season, but you need him to bounce back and be a big piece of your team. Obviously, Matt Olson, any of the catchers. Yeah, I mean, it would just be devastating. And that's just like, it's unfortunate we even have to talk about it this way. But when you've been so injury struck, not just this season, but last season as well, you're just praying the rest of the way, because there's not going to be a lot of positives to talk about, that nothing great negatively happens to one of your best players that costs him all of next season as well when you hope to compete. But that job, that window to compete with every one of these injuries is closing faster and faster, because now you look at the bullpen and the rotation, and we talked about maybe you don't have to totally reconstruct it, but without Holmes in the mix, not knowing what Ronaldo Lopez is going to bring, Chris Sale has battled. I mean, it's just, the holes are just piling up, and you just wonder, can you really fix all of this in one offseason? It could be done. It's like I said, it's going to take a lot of money, but it's getting close to the point where I'm like, I don't know if you can.
Yeah, some people on Twitter, had some choice words for your boy when I suggested trading Grant Holmes. His value'd never been higher. He'd proven that he was capable of being a back end of the rotation kind of an arm. And for a bad rotation, he could be your 3. And obviously, for us, we were hoping he'd be a 5. He's making pennies. That's extremely valuable at this deadline. Everybody is looking for starting pitching. Everybody. And if you can have a guy like him, who you said, the reason why he's so valuable to us is that he is that kind of hybrid guy. He can go in the bullpen. He can be a rotation guy for you. He would have gotten back quite the haul at the trade deadline. And the only reason I said that, obviously, if I knew he was going to be healthy, I would not move him whatsoever. The reason I said that is because I saw it. Maybe I was the only one who really said it out loud, but it was in the back of everybody's minds that, like, Grant Holmes, he's never pitched this much in his entire career. Like, he had just crossed that threshold of the most innings he's ever pitched. It's like, we saw it with Lopez. We saw it, like, this fatigue thing. Like, it's, I don't want to say it out loud, but, that Grim Reaper's knocking on the door. Like, it wouldn't have been a bad thing to kind of sell high on a guy like Grant Holmes. And obviously, nobody can predict these sorts of injuries, except they kind of keep happening where it's like, maybe you have some foresight, Alex Anthopoulos. I don't know. And obviously making a deal, a little bit before the trade deadline is unlikely like that. It's just horrible, horrible timing. Even if you were looking to move him, because now he's worthless.
Yeah. Another thing that's been flying around social media that I think is hilarious is, everyone likes to blame ownership. I think that's stupid because, one, you can't change the owner. So you're yelling at the clouds. You're literally the old man yelling at the clouds because the owners are not going to change. So just get over it. They're going to spend what they're going to spend, and we're going to have to like it or not like it. But it's not something that's in our control. Everyone else is fireable, even Alex Anthopoulos. And Alex Anthopoulos.
They're fireable. Well, publicly traded company.
I mean, not really, though.
Well, McGurk is fireable.
Alex Anthopoulos not being to blame for these pitcher injuries is a thing that I saw a lot on social media. And I'm sitting here wondering, actually think about what you're saying. Ronaldo Lopez was a bullpen arm that they tried to make a starter, and then he has fatigue issues. That was a very, very problem that you could recognize when you make that signing. Grant Holmes, same thing. Chris Sale, why'd you get him for so cheap? It wasn't because he wasn't good. It was because he's consistently injured. These are absolutely the result of shopping for value during the offseason. Absolutely. There's one man to blame for that. And it's not the injuries themselves. It's not like Alex Anthopoulos is down there stabbing these guys, but he might as well be to Grant Holmes and Ronaldo Lopez, who have never been starting pitchers in the last 5 or 6 years. So it is.
In some instances, I agree with you. In some, I don't. Like Chris Sale, it's like they're not arm injuries. They're quote unquote the freak injuries. But then, on the other side of it, where it's like, yeah, freak injuries, you can't help, not Alex Anthopoulos' fault. But in that same breath, it's like, if you keep having random injuries and bad luck injuries, is it bad luck? Maybe you're just fragile. Maybe you're just injury prone.
I mean, that's Chris Sale.
For Grant Holmes, I'll push back a little bit. I don't think, at least you got pretty much a whole season of Ronaldo Lopez. Ronaldo Lopez, I don't know how anybody thought that he was going to hold up. I mean, we said it before. That guy, you don't go on the IL twice with the same issues, fatigue issues, and then come back the next season or just suddenly now you have the stamina to go the full race. Like, the writing was clearly on the wall that, like, either one, maybe we, try and move him back to the bullpen, or maybe, limit his outings or whatever it might be. I mean, that one in particular is makes me furious, where it was like, we talked about it. And if we're talking about it, they've got to be talking about it. Like, there's no way that didn't cross their mind, where it's like, this guy, never been a starter, threw more innings than he's ever thrown, fatigued twice on the IL. Let's just throw him right back out there. Well, or not even to have, like, the backup plan initially, not the backup plan, but like the back of the rotation plan was Ian Anderson, who didn't even, and I know AJ Smith-Shawver came out and he was brilliant, and then he was struck by TJ, but like, going into camp, they were like, we got to give Ian Anderson a legitimate shot. That's malpractice.
Well, Bryce Elder too. But no, I mean, we talked going into the season how every single member of this rotation had an issue.
Well, Spencer Schwellenbach had never thrown that many innings.
Schwellenbach had just thrown a career high at the innings, 120 innings, which was like double his previous career high. And then he was going to be asked to throw 60 more than that. Grant Holmes, we didn't know because we didn't know what Grant Holmes could be as a starter. Ronaldo Lopez, fatigue. Chris Sale has been injured every single season for the last decade. And Spencer Strider was coming off internal brace surgery, and we didn't know what AJ Smith-Shawver was. Obviously, you couldn't predict his injury, but all the other things, you could see how there were potential problems, which is why we were like depth. Now, all 5 of them going down, definitely a bit of bad luck there, but all of these things we talked about before the season, and everybody was aware that they could potentially be problems. It's almost lucky that we're so bad offensively and so bad in all other aspects that, losing a 5th starting pitcher isn't the reason we lost, because we'd be a lot more mad about them not adding, but this team's so bad. That's the other thing. People just blaming injuries for this team being bad. There is no facet of this team that's playoff caliber, let alone World Series caliber. They have a bottom 5 offense in baseball. They have a miserable Miserable.
Maybe the
bullpen.
best defense in
Okay,
baseball.
cool. And you know what I always
The
say?
least valuable aspect of baseball.
Alex, how often do I sit up here and say defense doesn't matter? This is exactly why. It does not matter at all. Stop give me Kyle Schwarber in left field that can hit 40 home runs. I don't care what his WAR says at the end of the day. I know who strikes fear in me as a pitcher. I know who affects the rest of their lineup. I know who gives me juice. I know who gets the fans involved. Not some doofus out there that's hitting 215. By the way, Jerks and Profar is a terrible defensive player too. So he just sucks all around. Nobody's luckier than Jerks and Pro. I want everyone to focus on him. Everybody else, Jerks and Profar, just take all your anger on the Braves and blame it on Jerks and Profar because that guy is a fraud. He sucks. And I'm so glad. I'm not glad because I want the team to be good, but I'm glad I'm vindicated on that point. He is a bum, and he should not be on this team next year. That's facts.
I mean, if we were in a completely different position, he would be getting a lot more flack.
Yeah.
A lot more flack.
Bum.
A lot of people
Fraud.
are skating under the hanged man's noose, so to speak, because we are bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's like hard to go off on one particular person because the whole team is just atrocious.
Yeah.
Atrocious. 44-60, guys. Who would have thought? Mets fans would have thought. I know you've been in my mention all week just waiting. Oh, yeah, whatever. You finally got one. You finally got one on me. It's been 10 years. Well, I'll take the 90% hit rate. I'm better than Alex Anthopoulos. We got more to talk about coming up after the break. The Braves are even stealing what should be the most exciting part of a selling terrible baseball team is the trade deadline, but they're even stealing that away because they're unwilling to move, at least unless something drastically changes any of their core pieces. We're still hearing Marcel Ozuna, Marcel Iglesias, maybe even Pierce Johnson. Maybe we hang on to him. I know Grant Holmes, you kind of might need Pierce Johnson even more. Maybe they get rid of a guy like Aaron Bummer, but it's not going to be a very exciting trade deadline like you would expect for a team that is selling. But the two most recent rumors we heard on the two biggest trade candidates, Ozuna and Marcel Iglesias, starting off with Marcel Ozuna, is that he will waive his 10-5 rights to any team that's willing to guarantee him a starting role. Now, I don't know if that's good news or bad news for the Braves, because who the hell is absolutely going to telling Marcel Ozuna he's going to play every day? No doubt about it. I mean, he is hitting 154 over his last 40 games with 3 homers and a 514 OPS. He has a tear in his hip. What contending team is in such a bad spot? And maybe there are some out there that they're like, yeah, we will guarantee you a starting role. I have to imagine he'd probably waive it for anyone, but I think it's kind of funny that it's coming out that he'll guarantee you to anyone that will guarantee me an everyday role. Who would do that? You have literally sucked for 2 months. You have a 150 batting average.
Yeah, the only, reason to be optimistic if you're an acquiring team is, and again, this is, par for the course of, it's the trade deadline. He wants to play. He wants to be seen as valuable. As Ozuna's saying, that his hip is fully healthy now and that he is now just trying to get back the timing and the confidence that he once had at the beginning of the season and for the past 2 seasons prior. So if you're subscribing to that notion, then it is certainly worth the gamble. I mean, what's he going to cost you? $5 million or something, $4 million for the rest of the season. And this is a guy prior to the hip was the Braves' best hitter over the course of, 2.5 seasons or so. And if you're getting that guy, I mean, it is absolutely worth the gamble. Now, obviously, I don't really know the process. You do get to do a physical on the guy, but prior to the completion of the trade, would a team, agree in principle and get to look at the hip and then go, okay, we're good with it or not? I don't know. I don't know if he's just lying through his teeth because prior reports of the hip were like, it's something that is not going to, it can't get much worse, but it's not going to get better until surgery is kind of what they were saying, which is one of those things where it's like, you can do it now if you can play through it, or you can get surgery and be out for the year. So I find it hard to believe that it's suddenly fine now and he's just trying to find the timing and he's trying to find his confidence again. But if that's the case, that's really good news for the Braves.
Yeah, I think plenty of teams would be willing to gamble. I just don't know if any team would be like, hey, I'll guarantee you a starting spot. I mean, you like all of the things that have happened with Marcel Ozuna, including the hip injury, as well as his just performance on the field. Like, he's a designated hitter that hasn't hit in the last 2 months. He's been the worst on a team that can't hit. He's been the worst hitter for the last 2 months. So I don't know how any contending team is like, yeah, we'll guarantee you that spot, Marcel Ozuna. But then again, I think
the only reason is maybe it's like a rich team, not a rich team money-wise, rich in talent offensively, where it's like, hey, we can see if it works out, and then like, hey, if it doesn't, you're out of here. In terms of like when the postseason runs around, like comes around, where it's like we're not really fighting for a spot, we're in, and like this is the guy who can make us an absolute juggernaut. And that's the only real case. I also
wonder, like, when you look at that hip, if it is something that obviously is still there and is going to need surgery to completely, fully heal, if there is no potential offer out there where he's not going to play every day, does he just say, you know what, I'm good, let's go ahead and have the surgery now, and hopefully I can be ready as at some point next season? I don't know what that kind of injury is. I don't know how long the recovery. I don't know if it would take a whole off season, more than an off season, a year. I have absolutely no idea. But you have to think that if no one's willing to meet his demands, there is a chance where he's like, you know what, I'm going to just shut it down. I played through this enough. Let's go ahead and have that surgery, and I'll get back as soon as possible. That definitely feels like it has to be in the realm of possibilities if it's something that needs surgery. The other thing we heard from Marcel Iglesias, the Cubs are interested in him. I think the Cubs are going to be one of a laundry list of teams interested in Iglesias. I mean, a great clubhouse a presence, a guy with a 2.99 ERA over his entire career, one of the better closers over his entire career. I know he's had a rough season, particularly with that slider, but he's been a lot better of late with so many teams trying to look for relievers. I just think he's going to be one of the more popular because he's not going to cost as much as a Yohan Duran, who's going to cost several top prospects, or some of these other closers that could be moved, Emmanuel Clase. But, you know, he's that next tier of relievers that isn't going to cost an arm and a leg, and those are going to be really valuable pieces. So I think of all the guys that you could possibly get something of worth, a prospect that's worth a damn for, it would be Marcel Iglesias.
That's a seller's market, and you know, you might not be acquiring him to be your closer, but to be that eighth inning setup man, I mean, that's where he was when he first came to Atlanta, you know, setting it up for Kenley Jansen. Obviously, he stepped into that closer's role, but that's something he's done before. I'm sure he's more comfortable doing that than closing games right about now. I mean, his confidence is probably better than it once was, but I'm sure it's certainly not where it was last year or the year before. I think you're right. It's a seller's market, and there are not a lot of guys, Iglesias and included, who are you can ask to go and give you good quality, high leverage outings throughout the season and into the postseason. That's valuable. And, he's on an expiring deal, so you don't have to, worry about somebody being like, do I want to take on Aaron Bummer's $9.5 million salary next season? You might not have, might have to eat some of that if you're the Atlanta Braves. Marcel Iglesias, I know some people might think he's just a deadbeat, like he's worth nothing. I think you'll be surprised what the Braves get back for Marcel Iglesias. Ozuna, probably a bag of baseballs, but Iglesias is going to get you something.
Yeah, I mean, when Iglesias came over from the Angels, he had an ERA north of 4, and
closer to 5 than 4.
Yeah, and so you're kind of looking at a similar situation. So he's on an expiring deal, a big part of that deal, and the Angels still got Tucker Davidson in that deal, and it wasn't Tucker Davidson didn't do much for the Angels, but at the time he was a top 10 prospect in the organization. And a big part of that was the Braves taking on the remainder of his contract, which the Angels were trying to dump. So now you don't have a big contract attached to him. And I look at it from the perspective, and this is why I kind of wonder what Marcel Ozuna's trade market is. Because I look at it from the perspective of if I was on a competing team, like would I want I would want Marcel Iglesias in my bullpen. And I know he's struggled, but I think he's the best reliever on our team right now.
Oh, 100%. And I think a big thing that, maybe is flying under the radar is us saying like, oh, he'll just be an 8th inning setup guy. If you've got a dominant closer, it's like, he also has to be willing to do that, and he is very clearly willing to do that, which is, you might just scoff at and not even think about, but that is a factor where it's like that makes him attractive as well, where he is a team guy. You said it, clubhouse guy, where it's like, I will do anything to help this team succeed. And that's another reason why,
he he's going to be has closing experience. Yep. So maybe you do have a dominant closer, but hey, we'll teach you something about injuries. They happen all the time. You never know when they're going to happen. So you have now an emergency closer if something like that happens. So those are the 2 updates we've gotten so far. Expect both of them to be moved more likely than not in the next coming days. We got some more to talk about coming up after the break. We got some injury news out of Flowery Branch over the weekend, and a signing came out of it. Now, I don't think they were directly correlated, but Darnell Mooney left the first day of training camp with a shoulder injury reported by Zach Klein. He's expected to miss most of training camp, but it doesn't look like he will miss any time during the regular season. But the Falcons also brought in DJ Chark, LSU, stand up. I like this move. I think we talked about it during the draft process, how like a fourth wide receiver or something like that could be a good idea. They didn't go get it. We were fine going all defense. I was very happy about that. But then Chark's a guy that is an explosive wide receiver, 4.3 guy coming out of college, and he can really stretch the field. He's not going to get a ton of playing time, but he does one thing really well. And that's something that good offenses have. They have guys that can do a little bit of everything, know their role, and are very good at it. DJ Chark's one of those guys. Hopefully Mooney doesn't miss time, but that offense, we already talked about it last week, but those weapons are very, very encouraging. Michael Penix, you can't succeed with this. I don't know if you're meant to be a quarterback in this league.
Kyle Smith, the assistant GM, no idea why Terry isn't up there answering questions. I know you guys hate that I'm negative, but that is weird that the assistant GM is answering questions before the GM at the training camp. But he says the two are not linked. Now, you take that for what you will. If you don't believe him, fine. If you do believe him, fine. I agree. I do believe him that they were already scheduled, because it was already scheduled before the injury. They just so happened to, coincide at the same time, so it looks a little more suspicious than maybe it is. And to be quite honest, we haven't had a guy like DJ Chark in Atlanta in a pretty long time. Ray McLeod is he had a fantastic year last year in terms of comparing it to expectations, wide receiver 3. But DJ Chark is just a different kind of a wide receiver where you don't really need him to cut. You don't need him to go run a 10-yard, comeback at a 15-yard out. You put him, close to Drake London, close to Darnell Mooney, close to Kyle Pitts, and you just tell him to go touch the goalpost. Run as fast as you can to the goalpost. It opens up so much in the middle of the field because somebody's got to carry him. That's just the name of the game. And guess what? If they don't, Michael Penix is going to put it on them. And it's one thing, you could ask, well, why didn't the Falcons do it last year? Why didn't we have a guy? Because I don't think Kirk Cousins could throw it 40 yards. I literally don't think he could step into a throw.
Not accurately.
And Michael Penix could probably, falling backwards while being hit, throw it 60 yards. I mean, that's just the kind of power he's got. So now that defenses have to respect that facet of the Falcons offense, I think you'll see other stuff open up underneath and in the middle of the field and things like that. So it's exciting.
I know he was dealing with an injury. I believe it was a hip injury last year that kept him out, but in his last 2 healthy seasons, he's been a 500, 600 yard. I mean, legitimate guy that could be a wide receiver 3, but in this offense, you're asking him to kind of be a 3-4. Him and Ray McLeod do things a little differently. But I think when you think back to 2016, you think about Taylor Gabriel, definitely different body types, but
still same purpose.
And guess what else the Falcons love to do? Almost annoyingly, a lot last year. Nobody loves a wide receiver screen like Zach Robinson. And they did that time and time, every single game. There were 5 or 6 of those. Well, this is another kind of guy that if you get creative, you can open up space. I mean, I remember back when I was at LSU and DJ Chark was there, he had some punt returns that made you go, holy hell, this guy's going to be something special. And he's had some moments like that in the NFL, but he's kind of a gadget guy that, hey, when he's running routes, you know what he's doing, but also underneath, reverses, stuff like that could be very, very, very valuable as well.
Yeah, hopefully it's just nothing for Darnell Mooney. The shoulder,
I think he's good. I feel confident about that.
The only thing with Darnell Mooney and the shoulder thing, you saw how he injured it. I mean, that's not an abnormal play for Darnell Mooney where he goes up and has no regard for his own body. You love that. But also, he's going to be landing on that shoulder a lot. There's no question. That's just how he plays. I mean, he plays above the rim. I know he's a smaller guy, but he goes and gets the ball and he comes down hard. I mean, I saw plenty of times last year where he was falling hard on his shoulder, his body, and that's the only concern, that if it lingers, because he heard it in the same exact way, going up and getting a ball, landing right on it. So hopefully it's nothing too serious.
Yeah, one more thing on Mooney, because you got to give Terry Fontenot some credit where it's due. Another slam dunk,
great
free agency signing, and not just because of what he was able to do on the field, where he would have caught 1,000 yards if he played in that Panthers game. Might have got 1,200 with the way the Panthers were playing defense there in Week 18. But regarded as the smartest man in the room, he was the guy who got all the wide receivers together with Michael Penix down there, I believe, in Florida. So really embracing the role of being a leader. Obviously knows the playbook, according to the coaches, better than anyone. So they're very not worried
Hopefully
about him.
Not.
Well, yeah,
hopefully,
but they're very not worried about
him missing time.
They regard him as a guy that knows where everybody, kind of like a quarterback, but he plays wide receiver, where you can put him wherever at any position, and he can run those routes because that's the kind of receiver is, and that's the kind of way he prepares. So a lot of good things to say about Darnell Mooney, who's been a home run signing. So I'll give you a little. Hey, if you do good things on this show, I'm going to give you credit. And Terry did a good job getting Darnell Mooney. We got some more Falcons talk coming up after the break. Over the weekend, we had several scuffles involving some key impact young players that need to take the next step, one being a rookie and one being a second-year player, both across the defensive line, starting with James Pierce Jr., who was in the middle of two scuffles on Sunday with the offensive line, specifically Caleb McGary. Now, I personally, I understand you don't want this happening during the game. There's got to be some discipline. Maybe they ask him to run some laps or something afterwards. But I love this because James Pierce Jr., the one thing that he was knocked on that had him off a lot of teams' boards, how much does he love the game? How intense is he? It sounded a lot of Vic Beasley, right? Where it's like Vic Beasley wasn't going out there fighting in practice. He's letting you beat up on him, and then he'd try a couple snaps in the game. Like, that's just who Vic Beasley was. And that was kind of the vibes we were getting from James Pierce Jr. from his detractors. That don't sound like Vic Beasley to me, going out there and getting scuffles the first week of practice with Caleb McGary, who, ain't got no issue getting in some scuffles himself.
Yeah, my old coach used to make us hold hands and run laps. If whoever got in a fight, they'd have to go hold hands and then run laps.
I'd love to
which is pretty demeaning.
Caleb McGary and James.
That's what I'm saying. Can you imagine Caleb McGary and James Pierce Jr.?
I don't think that happens. I don't think that's happening.
It's a little different with grown men than middle schoolers, but nonetheless, I agree. Raheem Morris said, bad teams fight in practice and stuff. And obviously Raheem Morris is a much smarter man than me when it comes to football, we think. I kind of disagree a little bit. Like, it's me versus you. You know why I disagree is because somebody who was greater than them, or greater than Raheem Morris, not even close, loved it. Bill Belichick loved it. You remember those Patriots, the documentary, Tom Brady documentary, whatever it was? There was fights every practice. Offense versus defense. The practices, you hear it all the time about Saban and Kirby Smart. The practices are harder than the game. And now you can't do that a lot because these are grown men. You have to treat them a little bit differently. The grind of an NFL season is much different than the grind of a college season. There's more games, obviously harder hits. People are faster, bigger, stronger. I still lean into it a little bit where it's like the competitiveness should translate to Sundays. Like, I don't want anyone to get hurt. Obviously, that's, goal number one in training camp is just to get to week one as healthy as humanly possible. Outside of that, I love it. I love a little fire. It feels like, the Falcons, have we ever had, I'm trying to really think like that enforcer, that guy who strikes fear into opposing offenses. Like, I'm trying to remember right now. Like, I cannot think of a single one right now that we have had in the last, no. We just got a bunch of nice guys, like literally just a bunch of nice guys. Like, I'm looking at DeMarco Helms, who's like got that attitude in him, who's like Billy Bowman got that attitude in him. Like, maybe James Pierce got that. Like, I'm looking for some dogs on that side of the ball. Like, offense, be smart. You got to be defense. No regard for your own body. Try and kill somebody. Like, that's what defense is all about.
Yeah, there's undoubtedly a fine line There's no doubt about that. But I agree with you. I mean, if you look at anybody, and I know we're going back to college, but I mean, go back to the Florida Gators documentary. I mean, they were flat out having physical wrestling matches. I mean, they weren't even doing football activities. Like, they were just fighting, and Urban Meyer was encouraging it. Like that and there's an attitude that went into that team, and they played like that on the field.
But they're the baddest dudes on the field.
You can't tell me that the Ravens back in Ray Lewis and Ed Reed's day weren't getting into it in practice. Yeah, you start dominating, one side starts dominating, one starts going a little too hard. Yeah, there's going to be some attitude. There's going to be some intensity. So as long as it doesn't trickle into we're getting fights on Sundays, I got no problem with it. Another thing, an interesting tweet from Maria Martin talking about Rucororo being he's got a little chirp in him. He's got a little Brandon Graham in him. He said he said, I love to chirp. I'm chirping all day during practice. I'm chirping, and he's going to have a big role. So I'm hoping, like you said, there is a different attitude, and Jeff Ulbricht's going to bring that, coaching under Robert Saleh and learning under him, and obviously coaching under Dan Quinn as well. So, he's going to bring a little bit of that. And you're right. I think there has been a very soft, and it's because they've sucked. Let's be real. That's a big part of it. Yeah. But there hasn't been a lot of guys that are out there screaming. I mean, Keanu Neal used to bring that.
That was our last
Jones used to bring some of that. And you just hope there's a little bit more of that. And I think that comes with winning. That comes with confidence. That comes with making plays. There's no doubt about that. You can't go out there and get beat up and then talk crap. Or, I mean, you can, but it's not a great look. But I like that there seems to be a little attitude, especially among the younger guys. And Jalen Walker is going to bring that, whether it's just with his play on the field or maybe he's out there talking as well. So I don't mind it. I'm pro. We talked about it. We need some buttholes on that side of the ball, and maybe we finally got a couple of them.
Yeah, Ulbricht's intense. Nate Ali is intense, the D-line coach. And if that gets Root going, I mean, everybody's got their own ticker. You can't teach, you can't coach, you can't motivate guys one single way. Everybody is different. Everybody's got their own ticker. If what gets him going is talking crap, even though he has virtually proven nothing I do not care. You're lining up across from the best guard in the NFL and Chris Lynn. Tell me he's crap. I don't care. That gets you going. I don't care.
If you make plays.
Whatever because out of all of the young guys, and obviously Penix has to be a side. He is a tier of himself. We all want Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., Xavier Watts, all these guys to kind of come on to. Rucororo might be more important than any of them because
replacing Grady Jarrett.
We are talking about a guy who could make or break the defensive line from a run game perspective, which makes everybody else's jobs harder. Everybody else, if they can run the ball 5 yards a pop there is no reason to be getting mad about the pass rush because we don't have any opportunities to rush the passer. And we did not bring in anybody who's, that obvious run-stopping guy. I know I'm blanking on who it is. Somebody beefed up to 350 or something this season, so he's going to eat a lot of that. But Rucororo, up the middle, you don't need him to be a big sack guy. That would obviously be the cherry on top. But, if he can be a game wrecker in the run game, everything else will kind of fall in line from there.
I completely agree with you. We got to go to a break. We got some more stuff. I hope we get in some college football coming up after the break. We got 5 weeks until college football is gracing our televisions every single week for the rest of your football. Every single week for the rest of the year until football. I mean, we're here. We have made it. We got preseason football. That I will take preseason football.
I love when people go, "Oh, it's preseason." I will have it on. I will. One drive of starters for the Falcons is enough. It's just I just need a little bit. It's just a taste,
So we got a big week 1 of college football, which we've talked about several times on this show, Alex. But among all of those big matchups, which do you think is the biggest in terms of college football playoff implications?
I don't even really think it's an argument. And I hope you agree with me. And maybe you don't for the show's purposes. I think a lot of people will point to Ohio State and Texas because that's probably the biggest game in terms of, I imagine that'll get the most views because they're the two biggest.
At noon, but other than that.
Yeah, that's true. They're the two biggest brands in the sport right now. It's a rematch of the semifinal. Ohio State's defending Arch Manning. I mean, there's a lot. But I think if you go look at their schedules, it does not matter who wins that game in terms of their playoff chances. If you go look at their schedule, because Texas, the only other difficult game they play at least how the schedule looks right now today, is Georgia. They could lose 2 games and still get in. Ohio State is in the same exact boat, except they've got Penn State and Oregon. And you know, they go 2-3 in those 3 games. They're still in. You look at LSU and Clemson's a little bit closer because the ACC is very weak. But LSU, they win this game, they have a lot more leeway in the SEC where they could lose a few games and still have a pretty good, argument to get in because you think Clemson's going to win the ACC and get that first round bid.
Yeah, I think in terms of who has the most to gain, I don't even think it's close. I think I think Clemson, if they lose, they've got a pretty easy path in the ACC, and they could just straight up win the ACC. And LSU losing doesn't matter. Texas, I agree with you. The brand is so massive. Arch Manning is there. Even if they somehow lost 3 games, they probably still get in, especially if one of them's on the road at Ohio State, which they'll pretty much say, that was a good loss. You love how they saw that. They did that last year. Ohio State, we saw them lose 2 games, including their final game, and they were still
to a bad Michigan
They were still
team.
Comfortably in the college football playoff race. So I agree, because I look at LSU's schedule and I say, there's some losses on there. I mean, it is a top 10 hardest schedule. You have to go on the road to Alabama. You have to play Texas A&M. You have to play Florida. You have to go on the road to Clemson. You got on the road at Ole Miss. Like that is a tough.
You didn't even say South Carolina.
You got South Carolina. I mean, they have a ton of playoff contenders on there where it doesn't matter how good they are, if they even reach their expectations. There's going to be some losses on that schedule, and having a big win week 1. And this is why everyone likes to knock 12 teams. And yes, it made the Michigan and Ohio State game a little bit less valuable, but it makes a game like Clemson and LSU, at least from LSU's perspective, so much more valuable. I mean, this is, in a lot of ways, you have all this time to prepare, and LSU has had those struggles in week 1, all this time to prepare for a chance to where, I don't want to say you can pencil them into the playoff, but if they win that game,
their odds increase dramatically.
They are very, very likely to make the college football playoff. So in terms of who has the most on the line, I don't even think it's a question. I think it's the LSU Tigers going into
compared to expectations, with the possibility of what this could mean.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, Brian Kelly.
We have not won a single opener.
In terms of coaches, just go to the coaches. I mean, Brian Kelly has lost every single opener, and it goes past Brian Kelly, but he's lost every single opener, a lot of times because of poor coaching, which is just unacceptable when you have that much time to prepare. When you talk about Nick Saban, every time you saw that week 1 match, you don't want to play Alabama week 1. And yes, I know they had their players, but when you give a coach Kirby Smart, you don't want to play that guy.
We had the greatest offense in college football history, and we were asking them to run screens.
So, I mean, and then you had the blocked extra point. You lose to a USC team that won 6 games.
Yeah.
No business losing to that. I don't care where the game's being played. So in terms of who has the most on the line, LSU, and in particular, Brian Kelly, because if he doesn't get it done with this roster this year, that seat is going to be scorching hot in Baton Rouge. We got one more segment coming up after the break. Prediction time here on SportsTalkATL, continuing with the theme of college football, which we are a month away, and this is subject to change. It's going to change probably 10 times before now in the college football playoff, and we'll talk about this continuously because that is what we do on this show. Who's going to win the national championship this year, Alex? Who is going to raise that ugly trophy? Go back to the crystal ball, by the way. Come on.
I'll say this. I agree. I'll say this. I do think it's going to finally come back to where God's country. The Southeastern Conference. I do think it'll be, I do. I just think, you've got 4 teams in the SEC that can legitimately win a national championship in Texas, Bama, Georgia, and LSU. And I look up at the Big Ten, and you've got Oregon. Dan Lanning's proven, I'm not, he isn't until he is, just like Ryan Day. But I'll tell you one team who is getting national championship consideration that absolutely shouldn't, and that is Penn State. If you want to talk about somebody who has absolutely proven he cannot get it done, it is James Franklin, and Drew Allard is getting hyped for absolutely no reason. So I'm just going to take my chances of 4 teams that can legitimately win it versus 2.
I need a team. Which one of the 4?
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers. I'll go. I'm with you. I think it's the SEC's year. Three years in a row elsewhere. That just wouldn't be right. That's not college football. That's not the college football I was raised on. That's for sure. I'll stick in the SEC. Oh, you know what? I'll go with the home. I'll go Georgia. I think Gunnar Stockton's going to be a lot better than people realize. I think if Georgia's willing to kind of open up their offense and let Gunnar run and gun it, because I think they're going to have troubles at times running the ball, and you don't want to shorten all those games. I think Georgia. Give me Kirby Smart. Give me Georgia. Let's go back to the well and get another national championship for the Dog. That wraps up our show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll be back with you tomorrow.